The podcast you are about to listen to contains at least one of the following: strong language, disturbing topics, abusive opinions, generally things that aren't appropriate for little kids or overly sensitive people. So, if any of that stuff's going to get your nose out of joint, this is your chance to turn it off.
Feelings don't matter, so brace yourself tight. He'll lay it down heavy, he'll light up the night. No sugar-coated tales, just cold hard facts. In the realm of opinions, there's no turning back. Listen closer, just walk away. But Aaron had to say it, come what may. Here comes Aaron with the truth untold. No holding back, watch the truth unfold. On the podcast, airways feel the righteous state. You either take it in or let the silence ring.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of I Had to Say It. So we're going to start as we do by saying to Jason, Mike, Tabby, Javier, Fitz, McShane, El Jefe, El Devlin, El Morte, to the guys at the Weather Report, to Billy G, and to Walt from the B-Raw Podcast, thank you guys so much for your continued support. It means the world to me. Now, as we're rolling into week 4 of Trump's presidency, and we're looking at the world being shaken up in a way that hasn't actually really happened in my lifetime, even though a lot of the stuff that Donald Trump campaigned on and is subsequently following up on, and that's where the difference comes in from what I'm about to say, is the execution after the fact, not just saying, hey, this is what we're going to do, is it was campaigned on as a Democratic talking point back in the late 90s, early 2000s. Bill Clinton said he was going to clean up all the waste and pass a balanced budget, and then in somewhere along the lines, they just lost the narrative and decided, fuck the American people, we're just going to piss away all their money, and they're not going to do a damn thing about it. But as this election showed, those actions had consequences, people got pissed off, and the world has shifted. Which is kind of going to tie into what I want to talk about primarily. Now, a couple interesting things have happened over this past week. The Canadians and the United States hockey team had a hockey game. Now, I know there's been some animosity with all the shit talking Trump's been doing about our neighbors to the north, and he's not entirely wrong, despite all the syrup-slinging fucking snow Mexicans wanting to be pissed off about the fact that the simple fact of the matter is, fiscally, the United States does subsidize a lot of Canada's existence. And for my few listeners to the north, know that I love you guys individually, and pretty much my problems with Canada are not the people, it's the government, and the people who are apologists for the assholes that are just really fucking over what is honestly a beautiful country. I've been to Canada multiple times. I like plenty of people in Canada. I have Canadian friends. I have people I still consider my friends that are Canadian. I've had a good time every time I've gone up there, even in spite of, not necessarily always being the best ambassador for the United States to Canada. But that's a whole conversation for another day. I think it's actually behind the paywall. I think I already told this story. But again, I'm getting distracted. The point is, despite a lot of the, let's call it unnecessary animosity coming out of the current administration towards Canada, a lot of it is factually accurate to say, yes, there's a trade deficit between Canada and the United States, and tariffs would unduly impact Canadian, economy more so than it would impact the United States economy, which is why they were effective leverage against Trudeau and the horse shit he was trying to pull. And the people that were trying to defend people saying, oh, well, Trudeau and Mexico, Trump dropped the tariffs, and they're just doing what they were already committed to do under Biden. You know what the difference is? Is they're actually doing it now. They made the same commitments to the Biden administration, yeah, and they didn't follow through on a fucking one of them. So the difference isn't really the commitment made. The difference is whether or not it's actually being followed through on. So to the people that want to be apologists and say that Trump lost on that little tariff stand down, he really didn't. But, that's kind of old news at this point, too. But the thing that I want to talk about is the hockey game. So the United States team shows up. Canada, I honestly, I got to say, I was very disappointed in every clip I saw leading up to the game, every interview with Joe on the street, going to these different Canadian hockey fans going to watch the match because it was in Canada. And, home ice advantage and all that is understandable, but the way people were behaving, I mean, I'm all for friendly shit talking and sports rivalries when they're done a certain way, but when, you're stopping Joe Blow on the street and they're fuck America, fuck all of you, fuck this, fuck that. And, it's not not the same thing as saying, we're going to hand you your asses or anything else, but when you're literally saying fuck an entire country because you somehow feel offended that our shit-talking politician in charge is talking shit. It's what he does. If you're surprised by it at this point, you haven't been paying fucking attention. But I digress. So, a lot of man-on-the-street interviews all came off as assholes. Then, during the singing of the national anthem, when the American national anthem was sang, the crowd booed them so harshly. And, as much as I'm for friendly rivalries, that's not friendly. That's just being a douche. But, again, that's just my opinion, too. But then the game actually started, and within, the first 90 seconds of the game, there were 3 fights. I think it was actually within, the first 10 or 15 seconds. They just, guys throwing blows. America played a physical, rough-ass game, manhandled the fucking Canucks, and, wow, beat them on their home ice. So, it was kind of like, you fucked around, you found out. And I had a good giggle about it. And let's see, other than that, Elon's still been going through auditing this, auditing that, which is actually going to bring me to the meat and potatoes of what I want to talk about in this episode. But first, a little preamble here. Now, pretty much every single thing the Trump administration has tried to do has been attempted to be blocked or stymied or interfered with by some leftist Obama-appointed judge, or in one case, a Reagan-appointed judge, trying to stop an order Trump put through in relation to his management of the executive branch of the government, which is his purview as the chief executive officer of the United States government. Now, I've talked about this before, and it's utter horse shit what's going on, and to the surprise of absolutely nobody with an IQ above room temperature, it's come out that every single one of these judges has a very solid conflict of interests. One of them is on the advisory board of one of the committees, NGOs, that lost a shit ton of money when Trump said no more USAID checks going out. And the guy who insisted that they reinstate these payments immediately was basically cutting his own organization a $150 million paycheck. Another judge, his wife was on the advising board of one of those NGOs. Another judge, his daughter was working for one of those NGOs. The corruption is just deep and rooted in, and, they're draining the swamp, and the swamp creatures are still there, but at least they're not hiding underwater anymore at this point. And I really hope that the very slight Republican majority in Congress, enough people, I hope, are reading the room that there actually starts to be some consequences for this. So we're talking prosecution and fucking disbarment and jail time, because if they don't start throwing some of these corrupt motherfuckers in the clink, nothing's going to change. If they can get away with it, why would they fucking stop? If there's no real-world consequences for these fucks, and if they can just buy their way out of it or lie their way out of it or legislate their way out of it, nothing gets accomplished. And realistically, the thing that I'm really kind of hung up on this week as I'm looking at this, and you see the blowback and the consequences and the fucking pushback coming out of all these smooth-brained leftist puppets who are out here rallying and protesting in the streets, and as of yet, it hasn't gotten too out of hand. It's mostly just a bunch of well-coordinated efforts with people out there marching with signs. It's like, hey, who's paying for all these signs? Who's coordinating all the marches? Who's getting all this shit out? It's all coming from similar print houses, just like we saw in the Summer of Love. But, again, without looking too deeply into that, it's not nearly as raucous as it may become. Now, as we're looking into, it's still fucking cold out. It's still February. Even in the South, it's not exactly the kind of weather where people want to be out there marching and rioting and burning shit down. But spring's right around the corner. We've got a few more weeks of bad weather maybe, and then all of a sudden it's going to be warm enough where all these unemployed parasitic assholes have nothing better to do with their day than go out and cause problems. And I do believe we're going to see it stepping up, at least until we start seeing some fucking heads rolling, metaphorically, and we start seeing some motherfuckers facing jail time for their illegal actions. And the thing that I'm really just having such a hard time fucking processing, and honestly, I believe it's this whole cult of personality, tribalist bullshit, and all these smooth-brained, worthless fucks with no self-identity, no personal core, no personal identity, no personal real worth or value, rallying so hard behind an idea that they are, orange man bad, African man bad, all these people going out here slashing and hacking and stopping. They're evil. They're fundamentally bad. They're denying our rights to exist. And it's utter horse shit. But the thing that I'm really, it's like denial of facts that are in their face. Oh, well, I never said Elon could have access to my personal data. Well, realistically, you never really worried about it when a bunch of faceless, nameless, career parasite bureaucrats had access to that data. And they're a lot more inclined to fuck around with it than somebody who happens to be the richest guy on the fucking planet is. So, realistically, your perspective's kind of skewed, and you're kind of fucking stupid. And the fact that you're more outraged by the fact that this information is being brought to light than by the fact of the information itself and the massive, ridiculous overspending and waste being perpetrated by our government with our fucking resources is disgusting. It makes me despair. I mean, I've completely given up on the idea that there's any way I can find common ground with these smooth-brained fucks. Because if you're upset that somebody revealed the waste, and you're more upset that it was exposed than you are about the fact that it was going on, you're fundamentally fucking retarded. You don't have the capacity. You have no survival instinct. You're happy being a fucking donor to a parasitic class that doesn't care about you. And for some odd reason, you think they're the good guys. You think you're on the side of rightness and justice and whatever other fucking false ideals these morons are operating under that somehow makes them look at this situation and go, no, it's right that there are literally tens of millions of dead fucks receiving Social Security payments. The same assholes who were screaming about leave my Social Security alone and lying to the general population saying, well, Grandpa won't get his check because Elon's going in there and looking at all the stuff and stopping payments out of Social Security. First off, Elon doesn't stop shit. Elon and his team audit. They bring together the facts. They present them to the president. The president makes the fucking calls. So the people who keep trying to say Elon this and Elon that are disingenuous if they're the mouthpieces saying it, and they're fucking retards if they're the street-level assholes repeating it. And you have to bear that in mind when you're dealing with these fucking people. You're either dealing with somebody who's willfully disingenuous and lying about things that they know is a fucking crock of shit, or they're too fucking stupid to realize they're being lied to. Either way, they're not people you're going to make any headway with. There was a time where I was saying we needed to find middle ground. We needed to try and help these people. We need to try to help them help themselves. I'm really starting to question whether or not that's actually a feasible alternative at this point, or if realistically they just need to be, taken off, put in a corner somewhere, and given a big white helmet and nothing sharper than a fucking, those really big crayons they used to give kids when they didn't have the good motor skills and they couldn't use regular size crayons yet. Yeah, a box of those, some construction paper, and a white fucking helmet is realistically all 90% of these self-righteous assholes deserve or are worthy of. And yeah, then by the way, that's not just a random number that I threw out. The facts came out before I sat down to record this that the Social Security Administration is paying out literally tens of millions of checks every month, and the checks are being cashed, so the money's going fucking somewhere, to people over the age of 120. The oldest recorded living individual on the planet is 116. There are people receiving Social Security payments that, by the numbers, are 200 fucking years old. And the people that are complaining about this information being brought to light as a violation of their privacy or a violation of their rights or any other horse shit that these leftist assholes are trying to use to justify this fucking grift, like I said, they're either lying to you deliberately and intentionally because they think you're stupid enough to fucking believe it, or they're stupid enough that they fucking believe it. And there's really nothing you can do with people that are that fucking dumb. You're either willfully being ignorant and misled at that point, or you are a fucking mentally deficient halfwit, and you shouldn't be allowed to be involved in the process. And the thing that really gets me is, besides just these idiots flooding the fucking streets and the fucking purple-haired assholes and the drag queen storytime motherfuckers and all the leftist rainbow flag waving fucksticks and they're marching around waving their little protest signs, interfering with the day-to-day lives of people who realistically probably didn't give a shit one way or the other about them until they started inconveniencing them. and the just stinking self-righteousness that they walk around armored in, and they're convinced because of the last 4.5, well, actually, let's call it last 6 years, because we're going realistically all the way back basically to when, like, 2018, when things started going sideways. And once COVID hit and all these assholes, when you're out there and it's okay to protest, but you're not allowed to go to grandma's funeral, that gives you a certain sense of, self-righteousness and being untouchable and fucking plot armor. And it's infested some of these fuck stains so badly that you've got these morons out here that are like, a couple weeks ago I talked about the teachers who were posting these, like, honestly, calling them anything other than bullshit is just masturbatory, self-promoting, like, oh, come and try and take some kids out of my classroom, ICE, and you won't be leaving, and da-da-da-da-da. And I talked about how stupid I thought that shit was, because it gives you a certain instance of, you lose any deniability when that becomes a case of premeditated actions. And from a legal standpoint, you're fucking yourself 3 different ways. But again, I also don't consider any of these people to be intelligent or reasonable or even fucking sane. They don't have any preservation instincts. They don't have any survival instincts because they've never needed them, because they've been coddled and catered to and kowtowed to so much by the establishment that they legitimately think they're unfucking touchable. And so now you've got all these fucking retards between people out there protesting, dragging the president in effigy, having him hung up on a noose. I've seen footage of people with signs saying that Trump and Elon should be deported or should be killed. I've seen multiple videos coming from different social media, people trying to be influencers, because I've never heard of any of these fucksticks prior to this week, so I don't want to say they're influencers per se, because I don't know anything about them. I just know I've seen their clips show up on other people's feeds. But you've got these smooth-brained fucks that are out here literally calling for someone to go out and assassinate Donald Trump, assassinate Elon Musk, assassinate J.D. Vance. They're calling for revolutions. They're calling for armed uprisings. They're calling for violent actions. They're never making these statements in a way saying they will do them themselves, but they're also not saying that, it's just a conversation people are having or anything like that. It's literally saying, you know who you are, you know what you need to do. It's time for you to go out there and make a sacrifice, offer up your life so the rest of us can be okay. And that right there, to me, epitomizes what is wrong with these fuckstains, because they don't believe in their convictions well enough that they want to die for them. They just want someone else to die for their convictions. And when you get to that flawed mentality, that's why these fuckstains are really not, they're not a literal threat, other than you have the, mentally unbalanced ones that the CIA kept handing guns and telling them, here, go out and commit hate crimes. But that's a conspiracy theory. That's a rabbit hole we're not going to go down today. But what I am talking about is, like I said, I see all these posts from these fucking idiots who want to be out here talking tough, talking about how, oh, we need violence, we need bloodshed, we need death, we need people to die so our values can be saved and we can protect our democracy, which is, that huge talking point of these lammering statist fucksticks on the left, is our democracy's in jeopardy. And no, what they mean is bureaucracy's in jeopardy, and they don't like it because that's the only thing that validates them, because they don't actually bring anything to the table or provide any real worth. But you've got these fuckstains they've gone beyond the point of saying that they will react violently if put into a certain situation, to actively calling for violence, like, to be initiated on their behalf. None of them are willing to do it themselves, but they want it done for them so they can have their fucking way. And they live in this delusional world where somehow what they think and what they say and what they feel is so valid that somebody else should be willing to go out there and end their lives to accomplish that. And these fuckers need to go in jail too, because incitement to violence and actively calling for the assassination of a political figure, including the President of the United States, the Vice President of the United States, and an appointed officer of the executive branch, is a fucking federal crime. Now, I believe in free speech. I believe that you should be able to say whatever fucking thing you want and subsequently have to deal with the actions of that statement. You say something, you can't, obviously you can't say things, you can't yell fire in a crowded theater, which is an outmoded, idiom at this point, because nobody goes to fucking theaters anymore. So having a crowded theater would really be a miracle these days. But you can't say anything and be free of the consequences. Inciting chaos and anarchy and violence and physical harm to other people because you don't agree with their ideology is not something you can be free of the consequences of running your mouth. And frankly, all these leftist fucktard wannabe social influencers need to start experiencing that reality. Like, you go to the actual, like, big name accounts that are social media influencers, and most of them are smart enough not to say anything that fucking stupid. Because they're coached, they're coddled, they're paid to be out there trying to influence people and win hearts and minds and shape the youth or whatever fucking other ridiculous ideals they try and spread. But they're coached as to what you can and cannot say and get away with. And then you've got all these John Q leftist smooth-brained fucks who, oh, Elon's coming after my personal information. Yeah, he wants your 408 credit score and your $30,000 in credit card debt. Sit down, you fucking retards. But so, again, we have this level of comfort and this level of, like, I can say whatever I want. And, you know, maybe it's main character syndrome. Maybe it's just because they've never actually had to face consequences for the shit they've done because they've been mollycoddled and protected for their entire fucking lives. But you have these morons out here perfectly comfortable publishing these things, calling for this shit to happen. And while I'm no fan of Gestapo tactics, which will come up here again shortly, I really realistically think, yes, we need to start telling these morons, hey, guess what? You don't get to call for people to be assassinated and claim it's free speech. You don't get to say I was joking. You don't get to say I was, I was just speaking what I thought, what I wished would happen. It doesn't fucking matter. It's incitement and you're fucking liable for it under the current law. Fucking deal with it. And these are the same people that have been trying to imprison people for saying things they don't like for years. Same people that have been trying to eliminate your rights as a human being and as a free individual in the United States to have opinions that don't necessarily align with the main. They are the people that want you canceled. They want you unable to live and support yourself if you don't agree with their ideology. They are literally the worst human beings on the fucking planet. And this goes for extremists of both bents, but the stuff I've been seeing in this last week has all been coming from the left. The right, as I keep saying, the right-wing extremist motherfuckers are keeping their heads down and letting the fucking left do their work for them right now. And that's probably the smartest thing you'll see, and that's probably the biggest difference, is the extremist right, they're getting a little more confident. I'm starting to see a little bit more coming out of them, but realistically, they're much better at keeping their mouths shut and letting the left just destroy themselves. And when that changes, I promise you my direction of swinging my ire will go the appropriate way. When I'm starting to have people tell me I can't do that because it doesn't align with their values out of the right, fuck them too. But in the meantime, that's kind of where I'm at this week. It's a shorter episode. I got less fuel in the tank. I think I'm catching the flu, so I'm going to keep this relatively short. Before I forget, if you've made it this far, and it's going to be the first thing that comes up in the show notes because I had a really great conversation this past week. I had a guy reach out to me by the name of George Fontes he's got a podcast called The World Ablaze. I highly recommend you listen to it. You can go listen to the episode I was on there with him. We had a great conversation. It kind of had a feeling like we were going to hit it off pretty well, and I think we really did. It was a really good talk. We covered a lot of stuff. We covered, our industries, which actually kind of overlap. We covered some of our thoughts on, what's going on in the world today, just the way the world has changed, what it's like being Gen X, looking at all the fucking retards around here running their yaps. And I'm going to put the show link. I'm going to put the link in the show notes. I'm adding him to the, friends of the website, friends of the page, friends of the show website page. Man, that was really hard to get out. Over on the I had to say it podcast.com. Like I said, it was a great time. It was a good talk. He's going to be coming on the show as a guest one of these days here once we get some time freed up where we can get together and shoot the shit some more. And so you should definitely go check that out. Like I said, it was a good talk, and check out the rest of his show too. Dude's had some really cool guests on there. He's got some solo episodes where he just just venting his spleen, kind of like I do. If you like my show, I think you'll like his show. I like his show. I'm glad he reached out to me. I'm glad I found it. I've been listening to his back catalog, getting caught up. Dude's a solid dude. It was a good time. I really think you should go check it out. And so that's where I'm going to leave you. So for now, that's what I had to say. Thanks for listening to another episode, guys. If you liked what you heard, leave a comment, leave a review, leave a rating. Go to ihadtosayitpodcast.com, sign up for the mailing list, interact with the show. Click the links, sign up for the Patreon, join the Discord. Come and interact, be a part of the show. Buy the merch, support your favorite creator. or support me. Anyway, thanks for listening, guys. Till next time.